You know, this life isn't as black and white, all good and bad, right and wrong, as we tend to think. It's complex, and we're all just humans trying to make sense of it. So, if you're wanting more unity and love in this world, and are ready to step into curiosity, then join me, Brynne Erickson, on Middle Ground. And if you're willing, please leave your biases and preconceived outcomes at the door. Evan Fitzgerald, I am so grateful to have you on Middle Ground today. How do you feel about being here?
Well, it's an honor. I love the concept. I love what you're doing. The name itself is inspiring. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Yes, I was really inspired to have Evan on because he has had quite a curveball thrown into his life, and he has been dealing with chronic pain for quite some time and has tried to find peace and comfort in lots of different avenues, and has recently stepped into the world of meditation, which I am inspired by and has been helpful to me. And I was hoping we can talk a little bit about that. So we're going to dive into Evan's story and how he has been doing his best through this, and where he finds strength and peace and all the things. So Evan, thank you again. Tell me a little bit about you and your family to start.
Yeah. To start with my family growing up, I grew up on a farm, and my dad was a fish and game biologist. I have two siblings that have Down syndrome and a brother and a sister who don't. One of the siblings lives with me now. When I was younger, my dad passed away at about the age 7. Well, I just had turned 7. So that is actually where a lot of the desire came from to be a firefighter. But yeah, that was a pretty rough, painful situation that has carried through every day probably since. So yeah, I grew up in the Lehigh area, and then my mom remarried and we went up to Mountain Green, where I went to high school and graduated and started as a volunteer firefighter there. I was 17 when I started, and then my mission came. I went to San Jose, California.
For the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Yep. And then after that amazing experience, I came home and found my wife, Sarah, working. I was working at iFly. She was working at the Flow Rider. If anybody knows what that is, they're pretty fun experiences. So yeah, now, fast forward almost 20 years later, and we have a 16-year-old boy, a 12-year-old boy, and a 10-year-old boy with a little angel baby that is in between our oldest and middle guy. Her name's Taya. I should give the other names too. Braxton's the oldest, Ty is the middle guy, and then Cub is our little youngest guy. So
They're not so little anymore, though.
no, especially that man-child at 16. He's enormous.
He's huge.
Yeah, he's way bigger than me and Sarah. I think he tapped into some epigenetic potential, and he got some height somehow. So yeah, that's been cool to see. He's loving his new big body and exploring. He's lifting weights and things. So yeah, it's been fun.
I love that. Okay, excellent. So firefighting, why was that such a pivotal part in your life?
Yeah. So actually, the reason I wanted to serve in any capacity, like as a firefighter or even on my mission, was because I felt strongly at a young age that my family would be deeply impacted. I think that was part of the reason I wanted to have a job that was admirable, that my kids would look up to. That was also part of it. But then there was the aspect of those people that responded to my house up my worst day and tried their best. And even though my brother, he would swing on him when they stopped resuscitating because there was nothing they could do. He tried to convince the paramedics to continue, and it was the just reflecting on that over and over as I grew up um, really inspired me. I wanted to be somebody that showed up on somebody's worst day to try to, if not mitigate the chaos and resolve the issue, then to buffer, to offer a little space.
So, how does your world of firefighting lead to where you are today?
Yeah, so it was a long road to get to Salt Lake Fire Department. That's where I wanted to work. So I started as a volunteer at Mountain Green, and after my mission, I got a part-time job at a local fire department in North Ogden. And finally, right before my oldest, was born, I got full time there. So I loved it. I worked as an engineer and as an EMT, but I wanted to help more. I felt like there were more skills that I could offer. So I went to paramedic school, and that also helped with Salt Lake because they give you extra points, if you have these certifications. So I tested actually for Salt Lake for 8 years. It took a while, and finally got hired there. I think in 2015, something like that. Um, and it was amazing. The training there was great. I worked with some amazing people, um, and had a lot of experiences that I'll always, remember the rough ones and the good ones. I was a part of some miracles that um, I'm honored, I'm grateful that I have had the opportunity to be a part of. So it was a beautiful time, and everything that I wanted to become, I did. Like I even created a wellness program for firefighters that help minimize the impact of the job. Um, dealing with the extremes that they deal with takes a toll psychologically and emotionally. So I saw that outside of me and then inside of me, but I realized that we needed more support. So at Salt Lake, there was a job opening where I could be like a wellness coordinator as well as an EMS officer, like over the training. So that was cool. And I loved building the program, and it actually still is working. And that program actually is part of what helped me after what was what happened, and we'll get to that. But yeah, the program basically was built to help firefighters um, have this knowledge and this rapport with other firefighters, so that when there was an incident when they were struggling, they could
Mhm.
have that peer support. And that seemed to be the best model for actually making things better. So yeah, that was great. And then we got a deployment to California in 2017 when the fires got real crazy, and it was just before Christmas. My wife was unsure. She had intuition that something was going to happen, and she'd even tell you today that she felt pretty strongly that I was going to die, and
Mm.
she didn't know if that was logical. But now that we reflect on that, there has been a death of sorts. So what happened was basically we were protecting an equestrian ranch in in California, and we're putting out spot fires towards the end of the night. And we saw this spot fire up on this hill. It was a tree that was lit up, and it was more than a hill. It was like a borderline cliff with loose gravel, really steep. This one that you have to climb on all fours to get up.
Yeah.
And so me and my buddy put on our fire shelter, put on our helmets, and we grabbed a hose and some tools and headed up that about 200 feet. We got to the bottom of the tree, and we realized that it was unstable. It looked like it had been burning for a while, pretty dry. So we get above it and we shoot a straight stream to try to assess the stability. And the straight stream of water hit it, and it didn't budge. So thought we were okay. But then as we were putting out the fire underneath it, last thing I remember was a crack, pretty loud crack. And I went, I guess, traversed the mountain, and my buddy just went straight down.
Mm.
And I guess the way that I went was in direct line of the tree fall. So the tree hit me square on the head, a little bit on the face. I think broke my nose, but broke my helmet for sure. Um, and sent me down like a rag doll this little mountainside. And I lost my helmet, my fire shelter, and I was just landed face down on this fire. My partner said it was like a campfire, and I was down for around 45 seconds ish before he
Hmm.
got to me and pulled me up off of it. Um, and it was probably another 45 minutes before I realized that I had been knocked out. It was a familiar experience for
Mm.
me. That basically ended with this low airway injury from the smoke exposure, and then also a gnarly concussion. And after growing up as a snowboarder, I had several concussions,
Hmm.
probably around 9. And then this one was years and years later, and my body just was not able to recover. So the concussion messed with the systems that regulate immune function. So the the issue of lower airway injury turned into this reactive airway disease. It's called relapsing polychondritis that attacks the cartilage in your lungs. So it was really hard to understand what was happening. But after that, like it was this just pretty rapid decline in my health. And, and it, that just almost undid me completely. I almost lost my mind completely. And we can talk more about that, but maybe I'll take a break in the story. If you, is there any details that you want to know specifically about?
I think that's a great segue. How long did it take for you to actually get a diagnosis of what was going on? I know that you were frustrated for a long time because you knew something was wrong,
Oh
but
yeah,
no one could tell you what was wrong or
that's
why you were experiencing what you were experiencing.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So like going back to the wellness program that was created that I got help with and support by the fire department, it mindfulness was a key component to that. So I was meditating somewhat regularly, but that was a saving grace because I went to the pulmonologist and told them what was happening. And they basically looked at me like I was crazy and looked
Mhm.
at me like I was trying to abuse the insurance system, right? The workman's comp system. And that's how it was tagged. Even the very first doctor that saw me, she's probably saw me, um, the resident saw me most of the time, and the doctor came in for like 3 minutes. And then in her notes, she wrote, maybe symptoms of the worried well, which means, hypochondria. So after that, I was kind of tagged as that at University of Utah. And I was very much in distress, very much scared and not wanting to see what was happening and accept it. And those combination of things added up to be a pretty destructive situation for me mentally and emotionally. Um,
What were you not wanting to see?
the fact that my health was deteriorating and that I wasn't going to be this person that I envisioned that I wanted to be for my kids. Like I couldn't even wrestle with my kids. I can't now. I literally was laying on the couch for years. And all the while, the doctors were saying that I was basically crazy. So meditation was the only place that I could really go and see what was true and be with my body and allow what was happening to happen. Yeah, it took years and years before I got an official diagnosis, probably 4. And I relate so much to people that are just floating around in the unknown because it is almost better to have a fatal diagnosis than to not know for some of us who are in severe pain. Because the mind just wants to know. The mind is
Yeah,
like,
certainty.
exactly, it just needs to know what it's got to do to help with the situation be better, right? So that it kept building and building. And I was working on the wellness program this whole time at the same time. And I was working like 14-hour days because I didn't want to see what was happening and I was distracting with the job like a lot of guys do. And I I was running up to with some issues with our administration and the program, which is sad. We don't have to get into that, but I decided that I needed to leave that spot. And there was like my dream job open It was at the training tower where I got to train new hires. And for me, that's like, I didn't want to be a chief. I didn't want to be a captain. I wanted to make an impact in a way that would be long lasting. And after all the work that I've done with wellness programs over the like 15 years, it was really clear that that was the best way to make an impact, was to train these fresh, they were like sponges, just willing to do the job in the way that would be sustainable and leave that positive impact that everybody wanted to leave. But when we don't take care of our bodies in the way that it's necessary, then we don't really get that impact that we're looking for at home or on the job. So anyway, that's basically where I realized that I needed to quit, and that was something that I didn't want to accept, not even in the least. But around that same time was we were putting this program out to that entire state of Utah for all firefighters around the state to come out, and we had chiefs and captains from all over northern Utah to come. They came to this training that I was leading, and at the time I was so fragmented with this pain and with this disassociation with life that I was not even close to being able to show up in the way that I needed. And then a friend offered psychedelics, psilocybin specifically. And I
Mm-hmm.
had done a lot of research previously. It's almost as if my higher self knew that I would need specific kinds of support leading into this. And the groundwork was like being laid even way before the injury took taken place.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah. And then my buddy offered this, and it just, it opened up an awareness into the reality of what was happening that made it not a problem.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was, I received a lot of direction that I'm still, unpacking today. But one of the things that I was shown was that, I would have to leave the job for a while. And I thought it was just a time, like a few months maybe, or a year or something.
Mm-hmm.
But like, these are the things that are still unfolding. And another thing that kept ringing out was be still and allow. And
Mm.
that's like a mantra that has been soothing, like a heartbeat to me, throughout this. Um,
Can
and
I intervene for a second?
yeah, please.
So when you say disassociating with your body and your reality, what does that mean? Because, like, I'm thinking before because that's kind of the term we use with psychedelics as well, right? Like, you kind of disconnect from your reality.
Mm,
So, like, what
that's
is the diff?
actually, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
so go ahead. Just
Uh,
kind of expound on what I'm asking you. What are your
yeah,
thoughts?
yeah, yeah. I would say that psychedelics, the ones that I have used as medicine, do the opposite of dissociate. They give you a view into
Interesting.
reality. Yeah, a deep, deep view into reality that helps ground you in a way that is sustaining. And the dissociation that I was experiencing, uh, think about it like as a ski hill, right? You have all these neural pathways that are just chaotic, maybe like a lot of ski runs going down it. And psychedelics are like a fresh snowfall where you can like rewire some of these pathways, these storylines that have been taking you down some paths that have been destructive or just wasting energy. So that's what my experience was. And luckily, the program, it was 2 days long, um, and it went great. I mean, and that's where I feel like I started to learn that there's an intuition and a higher self that if we step aside and open up to, it will do the work. And if you allow it, it's effortless at some point. And if you can trust it, it becomes effortless.
What made you open to trying psychedelics?
At the point I was at, I had exhausted every avenue that I I had as far as the medical system goes. I didn't have any options, and I was suicidal. I was out of my mind, and the dissociation was basically like, this is not real. It is in my mind, and it's like cutting your head off from your body. It just doesn't work. and we're not our full selves. And so that kind of resistance showed up in everyday life in my house. Like it became a very destructive energy that hurt my family. It hurt me and a lot of people around me. So along the way, we got some counseling. We've had a lot of counseling over the
Good.
years. I highly recommend.
Yes, me too.
Me and my wife had some couples counseling, and it was recommended that I go to this rehab that's for firefighters focusing on trauma. It's called Deer Hollow. If anybody is wondering and needs it, it's an incredible program. And it was an outpatient program that I went to for 10 weeks. I think it was 5 days a week for about 6 hours a day. So it was pretty intensive,
Hmm.
and it was humiliating in a way because I was drinking to deal with the problem, right? And the trauma was the root issue, right? But the drinking, they needed to make sure people weren't continuing to do that, because drinking plus trauma doesn't really go very well for most of us for for a long stretch of time.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had to pee in a cup. We had to like have somebody watch us, and it was daily. So a lot of humbling happened at that time. And I also got to be a part of a group of people that had horrendous lives, and like suffering just unbelievably. And I got to see how they dealt with it and how they were showing up. And that was amazing. And anyway, so that helped continue that healing that I felt like the psychedelics started. And then the real integration is the daily meditation, I found anyway. And that over the years has been the way that I walk with God daily. It really is. It's an experience that I feel honored to have, and to have access to, because a lot of us, it's so simple, we don't even know it's there. And it's it's a way that I can experience other aspects of my being that aren't in pain. Like I can be with my emotions, and I can be with other parts of the body that aren't excruciating pain, and I can even be in the light body or the soul in a way that is beyond the pain. And it's not meant to be constant, right? This is where people get in trouble with psychedelics, is that they just want to escape, and it becomes, and that actually was part of a struggle that I had. But unless we're doing this daily integration, it's not going to translate. Like that state isn't going to translate into a trait unless we do the work of integration. So I guess that's a long answer to your question.
No, you're good. What have you learned about balance in life through all of this?
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I love your name of this podcast here. So balance, yeah, I've realized that truth comes from everywhere, and if we try to just go to one place for it, we're going to be missing a lot of it. So part of that balance that I found was going outside of the walls of the religion I was raised in, uh, Latter Day Saint, and I've found incredible beauty and sustaining truth that I don't think I would have made it through without it. So people like Richard Rohr, Thomas McConkie, Cynthia Bourgeois, there's writers that are really helping to be inclusive, to help people be inclusive when it comes to spirituality. So that's part of the balance that I found. Nutrition balance is like so important. So eating, like I've gotten to the point where my body craves vegetables and balance, like as far as natural sugars. I don't really do any fake sugars, so that's another area. And then I would say like one of the main things as far as balance goes that has helped me the most is making sure that I'm taking time every day to sit with my pain in a meditative state. Because the pain, it is intrusive. Like right now, um, it's excruciating. Like it really is very, very difficult. In this real moment, it's restricted breathing. It feels like I have like go heads in my lungs because the cartilage is just deformed and hardened. And my trachea right now is is pretty painful. Um, and it's okay, because the picture that I've been given is that all of it is important and all of it's included. And a vocation doesn't just look one certain way. Sometimes we're meant to show up in the world in a way that's unconventional, and um, maybe even in a way that's unknown to us.
What else have you learned about pain and suffering in this human experience?
That's a good question. What comes to mind first is a quote by Shinzen Young. He's Thomas McConkey's teacher. Thomas is a close friend and teacher of mine, and I highly recommend his work. But Shinzen Young, he said he has a whole quote talking about this equation of pain times resistance equals suffering. So what I've learned is that the pain itself isn't unbearable. What's unbearable is the suffering that we add by resisting the natural processes of life. So that, I think, also leads to maybe the idea of what life is all about, right? And is it meant to be full of pain? I think so. I think that pain is a function that is not a bug; it's a feature. And if we learn how to be with these things that, like pain and things like, like anxiety and depression, and we learn to sit with them, then we see that the true purpose is to help reveal the light that we've been entrusted to. So it helps trim off these things that aren't truly who we are.
Hmm.
Um, so that's what I would say, um, just off the top of my head, as far as pain, what I've learned.
Awesome. Are there any other ways that you haven't mentioned that you've tried to cope with your pain and find relief and healing?
Yeah. So I write, and that's been really helpful. I'm trying to share the story that I've been given, because I think there's a reason I've lived through it, and um, I've just we've been given so many gifts and miracles along the way. I feel like it would be ungrateful of me not to share it. So that that feels good and purposeful, and to do that, I've been working with Thomas in this group called Spectra, which basically is over a 9 month period where we're going deep into our own content, into our roots, our shadow, and then learning about what supports vitality in us, and how each of us uniquely show up in the world, and how that is woven into the beautiful tapestry that is humanity. So that's been really, really helpful. Probably, um, there's no real way to quantify how helpful it's been. It's unbelievably helpful.
What are some of your favorite things that you've learned about yourself through this process?
Yeah, I've learned that death and rebirth are a beautiful aspect of life, and it's a cycle that we're going through constantly. And that's another thing that I found outside of the walls of the religion I grew up in, was a saying. I think I even heard this before I got injured, but it's, if you die before you die, then you won't die when you die. It's above the monastery, St. Paul's Monastery in Greece, Mount Athos, and it was an amazing thing to just sit with for years and years. And I think I'm getting down to the bottom of really what it's pointing towards. I thought it was also interesting. I learned later on that Muhammad said something very similar. He just said, "Die before you die," and he said it before that was written, and probably before it had gotten to the West. So it just that helps me understand that we're all weaving together, reality and truth. But the reason that it's been so helpful is that um, I didn't realize that there was a lot of me that needed to die so that I could be who I meant to be, and I needed to allow that. So I'm completely different than I was. I'm a new person, and going back to the beginning, my wife said that she was afraid I would die when I went to California, and I would say that I did. Uh, a big part of who I was is gone, and who I am now, I'm still learning. I'm still um, just growing into, and I'm less um, certain that I need to define it, and more willing to let it unfold.
I'm just so inspired. And I just love, because I too have come to realize like our role in this life isn't to hand everyone a manual and be like, this is how you're supposed to be human.
Exactly.
But it's more like, tell me what your life experience is like. And
Hmm.
what can I become from your experience? And what do I align with? And what are some things that I don't agree with? And that's okay. But we can still walk together. How can I support you? Do you want to support me? Like, it's for so long, humanity has loved putting people in tight little boxes. And like, this is the right way you are of this faith, and of this culture, and from this country, and of this gender, and of this ability or this disability. And I think it's so interesting that we think that that's how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, yeah, we get really confused actually. And in my last Sunday school lesson, they talked a little bit about that confusion, and really, I think the big issue is that we think that the natural aspects of life, mistakes, illness, death, they're a problem, and we problematize it. When in reality, the fall is anything that causes separation or creates separation. So the fall is like anything that separates me from God, which is everywhere, right? So that is something that I've realized in it. And that also has been life shifting and a beautiful way to see the world. The other way that you described is pretty painful. It's no way to recover from something like I've been through.
And I think, because you said the fall is more disconnecting from God, I wonder how much of that is disconnecting from ourselves too.
Exactly. Yes.
And
Yeah.
are they actually, is it that different? Like, how much of disassociating from whatever your source is
Hmm.
or yourself? Like, or is it kind of the same thing? Because I've been thinking more on this concept of maybe divinity is more just the divine within myself. Like, maybe it is the same thing. Maybe God isn't actually out there. Maybe it's more just what already abides
I love that.
within me, or maybe it's both. I don't know. It's just more of a newer concept for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I love where you're going with that. A way that I think about it is that light is the source, right? Capital L.
Hmm.
And we're all fractals of that same light. And we all hit the world differently, and we show up, and the way we show up. And what obscures that is the identity that we develop over time, which is intended, right?
Yes.
Because that it's almost necessary to have that illusion of separation to build an identity that can witness itself. Because another thing that I've learned is that I really do believe that God, I think it's a Sufi way of saying it, but God longed to be known, so he created worlds visible and invisible. So I think that we are in the image of God in a way that you're talking about, is that we are God, we are the body of Christ, and it's up to us to show up in that unique way, because the arm needs the head and the leg to get around and do things in the world.
Well, that's incredibly insightful.
Well, thank you.
You're
I
welcome. That's
can't say
beautiful.
it's mine. I think it's just I synthesized a lot of the stuff that I've been interested in, and this is where I feel like um, seek and you shall find. Right, like we find a way to get through things, and we just, if we're willing to open and look, we'll find what we need to make that next step and take that next breath.
Yeah. And trust it, especially when it doesn't feel, when it doesn't align with what you're used to it aligning with.
Exactly.
So, like, if it's not traditional
Hmm.
or comfortable, even.
Yeah.
And even if they're the people that like, we don't do that,
Mm,
right? But when you take ownership of your life, your journey, your health, your wellness, your peace, and you're open to finding that in whatever way,
mhm.
is it like I life is literally an adventure now. Like it is so fun and so exciting. I'm like, oh, how am I going to find the answer to this question? Or who's going to be the one that's going to help me solve this problem?
Exactly.
And it just, there are billions of people in this world. And there are so many continents and places that have different ways of living and being and believing and solving problems. And one of them is bound to be able to help me in
Exactly.
this way. And I
Yep.
think when we pull back from just our boxes, right? We step out of them and we're willing to look around and go, oh my gosh, there, it is so beautiful up here. Like there's so many different ways of doing life. This is amazing. And it has just been, I don't know, it's just lit my life up so much more.
That's beautiful. I love hearing about that, because that's similar to my experience.
Hmm.
I have so much gratitude for the way, other religions see the world, and to me, it's just they use different symbols. We're comfortable with our own, right? And we see well with our own. But when we try to use somebody else's, it gets a little bit difficult. But it doesn't make them wrong. It doesn't make them less true, even.
Hmm.
So that's been really, really important for me to realize. And the trust that you're talking about is something that we can't find unless we know ourselves. And that trust is the trust in the divinity that's within each of us. And once I trust that in me, I trust it in you. And and to me, that's the same as trusting God.
How did you come to trust your intuition, your spirit, your inner knowing?
Yeah, I would say that when I was going through the issues, initially of not having any answers, it was at a time when my wife and I were fighting quite a bit. Our trauma was agitating each other. Mine
Yeah.
was more of a clingy, and her response was more of like a push away. So because I've had abandonment issues with my dad. Not that he meant to leave, right? But
Yeah.
it's just something a kid carries and adults carry. So I'm being aware of that now. It's really helped me to make space for her. And yeah, just during that time, I had to figure out what was true for me because she couldn't reflect it back at that time, and that's okay. And I think that's necessary for us as couples to be able to see it within ourselves so that we can show up as a more complete half, if that makes sense, so we can make a complete whole together.
Mm, I love that. You are individually you and I am individually me, but together we make something awesome.
Exactly. Yeah, we make something more than just the two, right?
Hmm. That's awesome. So do you consider yourself more spiritual or religious, or where do you fall on that spectrum?
um I think I would say that I've, ever since I was young, had a aversion to religion. To I from a young age felt like the letter of the law was being um, held as more important than the spirit of the law. And so on my mission, I actually visited a lot of different churches. I went to Buddhist temples. I went to Catholic prayer groups, and
How'd your companions feel about that?
they liked it. Yeah, they
That's
were.
cool.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. I even tried to do a confession once, but that I guess was inappropriate because I didn't know the process. The priest got mad at me, um, but it was good experience just to see that these are good people doing good things. And like Richard Rohr says, that every religion will produce saints. And that's something I believe, because it doesn't necessarily matter, in my opinion, the religion, because what matters is where two and three are gathered, there will I be also, right? That's what we were told. Like, this is church for me.
I love that. So I don't necessarily want to close, but I don't know that I have any more questions so much. You're just so wise and you've learned so much. And quite honestly, Evan, I've never really engaged with you until you've been on this side of your journey. But your sweet life, Sarah, is very social and
Yeah.
very much on social media. And I appreciated her honesty
Yeah.
in your guys' journey. And I'll never forget her posting things like, I don't know if Evan's going to be here tomorrow, whether from your illness taking you or suicide taking you. And I remember just thinking, what would it be like to live in that state and to watch your spouse, or whether it's a child or someone that you love, struggling through that? Do you have any advice for maybe the family member or the spouse that is witnessing and supporting someone that has been in your shoes?
Wow. That's probably one of the best questions I've been asked. Yeah, I have a few things that I would recommend. First, trying your best to maintain a calm attitude and faith in the person's ability to deal with what's happening is very important. That's actually something that when my dad died growing up and I just had, a rough time, it was hard. And my mom would always remind me that she had faith that I could get through it, that I had what it took to get through it. And that instilled a lot of confidence and courage. Um, I would also say that it's okay to set a boundary and not take on what isn't yours, even if the person is taking on so much they don't know what to do with, and it falls on you. That's okay to step away and take your time that you need to be healthy. And I guess the last thing that I would say is that each of us would do each other such an amazing service if we learned how to be present with one another in our suffering. And I don't know if we're able to do that unless we sit with our own and make space for our own and find compassion for the aspects of ourselves that we don't want to look at, that we're afraid of. And that, in my opinion, is how Sarah shows up now. And I feel like the container that we have in our marriage is so powerful and supportive. It feels like a heaven compared to what it was before. It was pretty scary. We were pretty close to divorce, but thank God, and grace for helping us become these people that are able to live with this situation that isn't it 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 doesn't feel, possible to enjoy a life when somebody has this situation happening. Like you said, I can't even imagine being on that side and having to witness it. I was a puddle for years,
Mm-hmm.
and she didn't know what to do. I'm sure she's terrified as well. Um, I know that she was. We've talked frequently about it. And let me just say the two things that really switched things for us, for all those couples that are dealing with adversity, no matter where it's coming from, is that when I learned to see her for how she was helping me grow, even those difficult things that she was bringing into the relationships, the disturbing things. Bruce Tift has a book called Already Free, and he talks about sitting with your disturbance and even thanking your partner for the disturbance that you get to have a personal relationship with, because we all have things that come up that disturb us, and once we learn how to sit with those, they don't interrupt life like they used to. So that I guess that's what I would say.
That's awesome. And are there any resources other than that person that you just referenced that you would recommend?
Yeah. So Thomas McConkie has a group called Lower Lights. Highly recommend it. They meet monthly and sometimes in person, but you could just look up Lower Lights. And uh, I would recommend our podcast. We have talked a lot about our story in depth, the two of us, me and Sarah, and how we got through it as a couple. It's called Pain's Purpose. And I'd recommend that if you'd like, if it feels interesting. And then I'm also writing a book that I'd love to chat with you about more in the future when it's complete, but it's pretty close. It's called Pain's
Awesome.
Purpose. Yeah, and it's about embracing life in its wholeness, including all parts, and witnessing the beauty that unfolds when you do.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah.
All right, Evan, before we close, what do you want to leave with people? Your final words of wisdom or advice?
I would just say, they're not my words, actually. They're Jesus's words. He said, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." And that's because pain itself isn't unbearable. We can learn to be with it in a way that we don't add extra suffering. It's possible in life. We have the power to change the hell that we've been given to a heaven. I honestly believe that. And we need each other to do it.
Perfect. I love it. So wise, so much hope. I feel like this conversation was incredibly hopeful.
Thank you.
Because all of us experience pain and
Mm-hmm.
suffering, whether it's spiritual, emotional, mental, relationships, physical. No one is exempt from it.
Exactly.
So you can either learn to embrace. I mean, that sounds weird, right? Like, how do I embrace my pain? But it is such a critical part of this life experience. And you have just taught us so much about that. So thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. It was an honor to be with you.
Before you go, if this episode resonated with you, or perhaps someone came to mind that you could share it with, if you wouldn't mind sharing, that would be amazing. Or you can leave a review or follow the Middle Ground podcast. All of these things will help the algorithm, because that is a real thing, allow people to find my podcasting community so much easier, and is essential for the growth of this podcast. And I would appreciate it so much. So remember, stay curious, spread love, and I hope you have an amazing day, evening, wherever you are, whatever you are doing.